Hello everyone, I am Dr. Crystal Abidin, and thank you so much for having me at this TEDx talk organized by NgeeAnnPoly. Now, most of us may be very familiar with internet culture and social media, but I happen to do this for a living. I'm an anthropologist of internet celebrity, influencer cultures, as well as social media pop cultures, and it's my job to understand how young people use social media and how internet celebrities on social media affect our society and cultures. I've been looking at this industry in the Asia Pacific, including Singapore, from the mid-2000s. This has meant that I was right there at the beginnings when we had the first generation of commercial bloggers. It also meant that I was fortunate enough to study the rise and the origins of blog shop cultures in Singapore. And more recently, I've been looking at different forms of internet celebrity and influencer cultures across many different types of platforms. But above and beyond this, I'm sure many of us have a lot of misconceptions about influencers and influencer cultures. For one, most of us may have this stereotype or this belief that influencers are just young, beautiful women, primarily on Instagram, here to take selfies and to push different types of product placements and services to us. That may be the case for some of these influencers. We may also think of influencers as people who are usually embroiled in scandals. And in the Singapore landscape, this often happens through clickbait on YouTube, different types of Twitter wars on Twitter, as well as Instagram wars where people throw shade or exchange comments with each other over and over. But above and beyond this, how can influencers and the stories they tell allow us to reconsider our information diet and our worldviews? For one, I would like all of us to think about who we are following on social media and what types of influencers we're familiar with. Chances are, if you rely on recommendations from your friends, from algorithms on social media, or maybe even in the mainstream press coverage, most of the time the influencers you see may be quite homogeneous. In Singapore society, this may be the case that you primarily see young, beautiful Chinese influencers on your social media. But going beyond this, if we were to spend time and effort to scope through the different genres and varieties of influencers, you will see that they're actually critically important for representing cultures at the margins. Case in point, here on screen I have 4 slides that show you screen grabs from various videos by a YouTube influencer duo known as Hirzi Official. They are a Malay-Arab-Muslim duo who have been in the scene since the early beginnings of YouTube culture in Singapore. And by drawing on their network of public figures, fellow influencer friends, as well as friends and family, you can see how they unabashedly represent what Singapore society and life as a young person can look like away from the mainstream depictions of influencer cultures. Influencers are also especially important for giving us critical commentary on society. You may be aware that some influencers are really experts at humor. They astroturf all sorts of parody, satire, critical commentary on Singapore society and politics, sometimes through the vehicles of entertainment, other times through the vehicles of entertainment that's really a political message. Case in point, here on the left, you see again YouTube duo Hirzi Official together with some of their friends from the music industry coming together to put a parody video commenting on the state of racial discrimination in Singapore. This occurred during a time period where Malay vendors were turned down from hawking their wares at various bazaars and shopping centers because they were not the target demographic that was presumed to be Chinese spending consumers. Case in point on the right, we have the siblings Pretty Please, an influencer, as well as Subhash, a musician and rapper, who have come together to put together a parody video, also commenting on the issue of brownface in Singapore and how that is an instance of casual racism that we tend to overlook. Another part of my research looks at the very fascinating world of meme factories. And as you can see from screen, they can either be coordinated groups of many people coming together in a coordinated style to produce contents, or they could very well be a one-man factory managing several types of social media platforms, profiles, and devices to push out meme messages. Most of us may think of memes as hilarious images that entertain us. Can you guess or remember who this meme refers to? Others of us may think of memes as funny pictures that are circulating on social media, especially on the very visual-dominated space like Instagram. But above and beyond entertaining us and being pretty pictures for us to go through in the style of Instagram lectures, what can memes do for us in Singapore society? How are they important vehicles for spreading information and normalizing new sentiments? I want us to think about memes and meme factories as coordinated actions who can trigger new norms whenever their actions happen in a concerted period of time and respond to a very coherent and time-bounded series of issues. With a combination of them knowing how to trigger algorithms so that their keywords register as trending, a combination of knowing where to plant these messages on different social media platforms, and also employing sometimes influencers or influencer meme makers to plant these on different parts of the internet. It is not difficult for many of these meme factories to set off a new topic, set off new trends, or even normalize a lot of new messages that may be foreign and unfamiliar to people. A lot of memes in Singapore tend to operate on platforms like Instagram as well as on Facebook. On a space like Instagram, apart from liking and commenting on memes, a lot of young people are also now sharing them on stories and forwarding them to their family members through group chats like WhatsApp and Telegram. Now, meme factories are very critical here because they play with the element of parallel languages. These are all the associated types of communication often familiar on social media that are not actual written or spoken word. So this can come in the versions of, say, emoji, pictograms, emoticons, sometimes even leet speak, or internet pop cultural speak. The vehicle of these parallel languages allows these meme factories to shape the boundaries of a conversation in Singapore. Here, we see two examples from two different meme factories in Singapore who were addressing the topic of sexual assault cases that happen on a very prominent university campus. There was a lot of discussion on how the perpetrators on these university campus got away quite lightly despite their offense. And in response to this, although there were many murmurs in the public forums and a lot of murmurs on different internet spaces and comment threads, it was really these sorts of memes that catch on to the public imagination, circulate far and wide, that drive home the message of whether or not such sexual offense should be taken lightly just because someone may have intellect or academic achievement. We also see meme factories in their heyday from the mid-2000s being employed as forms of vigilante activism, especially for citizens to seek redress where they feel the state or the police might have failed them or might be taking way too long to be responding to their requests. Case in point, this really milestone and popular historical group on Facebook is known as SMRT Limited Feedback. They're a band of anonymous actors who come together and often respond to followers on Facebook who post about all the different offenses that they spot in Singapore society and plead with these super informed tech guys to do something about this. Now, sometimes this may be thought of as good old trolling, as in the case of Jova Chu, who was found to be guilty of fraud or cheating some customers at his shop in Sim Lim Square. But above and beyond trolling for laughs and trolling for entertainment, there are actual benefits and actual redress for the victims involved in these cases. Case in point, the tourist who was cheated of his money in this whole scam eventually received a refund that was bounded together through fundraising by people who came across his case on social media. In other instances, such meme factories on popular Facebook groups are the drivers behind making visible these very acts that seem to be hidden by Singapore society due to the influx of a lot of information on social media. And by making something a public national conversation, they peer pressure, or sometimes really just pressure altogether, the state or the press to take notice and to respond to them. So why should we care about internet artifacts and actors like influencers and meme factories? The truth of the matter is we're right now living in a situation where there's mass saturation and misinformation, not just on social media and the internet, but in all facets of society. And more now than ever, Influencers and meme factories are experts in shaping our attention, amplifying and suppressing where our attention spans to be, as well as redirecting and funneling foot traffic and eyeballs to some issues over others. So in fact, in this age of saturation and misinformation, both influencers and meme factories are very critical actors in shaping our media literacies, as well as helping us navigate the space of social media and the mass media a little bit easier. I want us to think about the actions of these influencers and meme factories as subversive frivolity. I'm sure many of us can think about the number of times we tend to brush off influencers as mere vain young people, or we brush off memes as mere jokes or humor on social media. But the fact is, these types of formats that they occupy make them under-visibilized and underestimated. People think of them as marginal, inconsequential, or even unproductive. But it's this very underestimation of them that gives them power, because all of the populist discourses that they have been spreading and seeping into society, all of the sentiments that they're shaping, all of the influence that they have, is still ongoing. It's just that when people look at them, they do not really take a second look, and all of this labor, work, and power that they have slides under the radar. So for that reason, influencers and meme factories who are not taken very seriously tend to just survive longer in the information ecology because they stick, and people are very happy to listen to their messages and to have them hang around just a little bit more. You might also be aware that we are living in a situation now where there's a lot of scandals, controversies, and confusion on social media. Just about every other day, there may be someone who's being called out for an issue, a company whose social media campaign has gone wrong, or a person whose misdeed or wrongdoing was exposed because of social media attention. But we want to be aware of when this can be very fruitful and useful for public conversation versus when these are just circuits and cycles of what anthropologist Victor Turner calls social dramas. That's right, every time we come across a scandal, whether by an influencer, by a public figure, or by a meme that's spreading its rounds in social media, we can think about the life cycle of how these visible artifacts occupy our imaginary as well as take up space on social media. And there are usually about 4 stages in this typical life cycle. In the first stage, we think about an overt breach. This is when there may be a sin, a wrongdoing, or a scandal that's been committed that breaches the social norms that are already in place and governing society, whether society and the laws of influencer cultures, or of everyday societies, or of different religious and cultural groups that have different beliefs. So that's step 1, a breach. In step 2, there is now an escalation of this crisis. This usually happens when people take notice of this breach and respond to it, usually through finger pointing, through conversations on social media, so much so that with this going viral or getting a lot of visibility on social media, there is a reordering of social relations. What this means is that maybe a once popular influencer may now be very much the number 1 hated person on the internet. Or it could be that a topic that's usually taboo to talk about is now the one trending meme that is circulated far and wide. So we see here that there is a shift and an escalation of crisis where the norm has been disturbed and things are escalating on the rise. And that is step 2. In step 3, after all of this happening, there usually takes some time for the person in question, the meme in question, or maybe even the company who has been faulted to take part in some sort of redressive action. If you're a fan of influencer cultures, this usually takes the form of a sorry video on YouTube or a very extensive heartfelt post on Instagram. This may also come in the form of public apologies by companies or by meme factories and different accounts taking down their contents, deleting contents, and making apologies. Now, redressive action is really important here because it's usually initiated by what we think of as a disturbed social system. These are people who are responding to a wrongdoing or a disturbance in the norms only because there was an escalation to begin with. So steps 2 and 3 are very important for us to be thinking about all the unconscious bias that we have, all of the subtle casual racism and sexism we usually think that can pass under the radar, as well as all the casual jokes and humor that we tend to make about different groups in society and pass off as being okay normalized conversation. Steps 2 and 3 come together in tangent and allow us to see and improve as a society to think about how we can be more sensitive and inclusive to each other. And then comes the final step 4, known as reintegration. This is usually after some time has passed. Maybe the public has accepted the apology, maybe they've forgotten this incident altogether, maybe the party in question has just faded into oblivion from deleting their social media presence. We see reintegration when there's a recognition or a legitimation that there may have been an irreparable damage or that this situation has just passed its time or passed its peak. Reintegration can take many forms, as mentioned. Many a times we see influencers trying to launch themselves again, but a lot of these social dramas and scandals have also entirely broken careers of influencers, caused meme factories to shut down, caused blog pages to shut down and be issued defamation suits, or caused public figures to be asked to step down from their jobs altogether. So clearly here, the circuit of social dramas has a function, and this is very important for us to think about whenever we want to assign value to controversies, petty squabbles, and scandals on social media. That has been me, Dr. Crystal Abidin. I'm an anthropologist of influencer cultures and social media pop cultures, and I hope this talk has been useful for you to think a little bit more meaningfully about influencers and meme cultures in Singapore society. Thanks for having me, and feel free to get in touch if you'd like to continue our chat. See you!